Have you ever carried a grudge for years without even realizing how heavy it had become? Maybe it's something small, like a harsh word from a friend long ago, or something bigger, like a family conflict that never fully healed. I've been there, holding on to bitterness and replaying moments over and over, thinking that holding on somehow protected me. But in reality, it was like carrying around a backpack full of stones that weighed me down every single day. And the truth is, as we get older, those stones don't get lighter on their own. They press into our hearts and minds, sometimes subtly, sometimes so heavily that they keep us from fully enjoying the life we've worked so hard to build. It was only a few years ago that I discovered one habit that truly changed everything for me. It didn't come from a book or a seminar, it came from a quiet, everyday practice that I slowly integrated into my life. Before I share it with you, I want to acknowledge something important. Forgiveness is not easy. It's not instant. And it doesn't mean you have to condone what happened, or that you have to reconcile with the person who hurt you. Forgiveness is first and foremost a gift to yourself, a way to release the grip that past pain has on your present. And the habit that helped me do that is deceptively simple. It's the habit of writing down my feelings, every single day. Now, when I say writing down my feelings, I don't mean keeping a formal journal with perfect grammar or well-structured sentences. I mean sitting with a notebook or a sheet of paper and pouring out whatever is in your heart. Anger, sadness, frustration, longing, anything that's been simmering silently. For me, it started as 5 minutes each morning, just before my coffee. I would write down the moments I remembered from the past that still stung, and I would allow myself to feel them fully on the page. At first, it felt strange, almost like I was talking to someone who wasn't there. But gradually, I realized that I was talking to myself, really listening to myself in a way I hadn't done for decades. The first surprising thing about this habit is how much clarity it brings. When feelings are trapped inside, they swirl around in your mind endlessly, clouding judgment and amplifying pain. Writing forces you to articulate them. You can see them on paper, and that distance alone makes them less overwhelming. You start noticing patterns, understanding why certain memories trigger strong emotions. And once you see them, you can start to separate the event itself from the feelings it creates, a powerful step toward releasing that old hurt. Another part of this habit is consistency. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, almost unnecessary. You might wonder, does this really help? But like any habit, the benefits grow over time. Writing daily creates a safe space for your emotions. It's a private sanctuary where you can be honest without fear of judgment. And when emotions are expressed, rather than suppressed, you begin to notice a subtle shift. The past feels less controlling, the grip of resentment loosens, and you start to recognize that you have the power to choose how to respond today, rather than being trapped in yesterday. I also want to share a small but essential trick that made the habit even more effective for me. After writing about a painful memory or a lingering grudge, I would end each entry with a sentence or two that framed a small act of release. It might be as simple as, I am letting go of this anger today, or I choose peace over resentment. It doesn't have to be profound, it just has to be intentional. That final act of framing the emotion gives your mind a clear signal, it's safe to let go. Over time, these small acts accumulate, and you begin to notice a lighter heart, a calmer mind, and a greater sense of freedom. Another thing I learned is that writing about forgiveness doesn't just mean thinking about the other person. It's also about forgiving yourself. We carry guilt for mistakes, choices we regret, or moments when we didn't speak up or stand our ground. Writing creates a space to acknowledge that we were human, that we did our best with what we knew at the time. Self-forgiveness often opens the door to forgiving others, because it allows us to approach the past without the harsh lens of self-judgment. In addition, this practice helped me notice how holding on to anger or resentment impacts my present relationships. Sometimes, we hold on to old pain without realizing that it leaks into our daily lives. It affects how we interact with friends, family, and even strangers. By writing it down and consciously releasing it, I found myself more patient, more present, and more willing to enjoy the people around me. That ripple effect was unexpected but profoundly rewarding. Life became less about defending myself against the past and more about embracing the moments I have right now. There's also something comforting about the physical act of writing. Putting pen to paper slows your mind, gives you a rhythm, and allows thoughts to settle. It's almost meditative. Even if you only write for 5 or 10 minutes, that small pause in your day creates space for reflection and healing. And when I combined this with a few deep breaths before and after, it became a ritual that my mind and body both recognized as a time to let go, a moment to reset. I should also mention that writing down my feelings doesn't always lead to immediate resolution. Some memories are stubborn, some pains linger. But the beauty of the habit is that it provides a safe, consistent outlet. Every time I return to the page, I give myself permission to process, to feel, and to slowly release. Over weeks and months, the weight of past grievances diminishes, and forgiveness, both for myself and for others, emerges naturally, not as a forced act, but as a gentle unfolding. So, as we begin to explore this together, I want you to consider your own life. Is there someone, or some event, that you've been carrying silently for years? Is there a memory that you revisit too often, one that still triggers pain or resentment? Imagine setting aside a few minutes each day to write it down, to let yourself fully experience the emotion, and then to consciously release it. It may feel small at first, but small daily habits have a remarkable way of transforming our emotional lives, especially as we age. And now that we've talked about the foundation of this habit, the act of writing, expressing, and framing release, let's move deeper into the ways this practice can evolve and truly change the way you relate to yourself and others. And feel that these insights are meaningful. Please type number 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I warmly invite you to do so, and don't forget to turn on the bell, so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos designed to uplift, inform, and inspire. Your support truly means a lot. It's what keeps us going and allows us to continue sharing thoughtful, helpful content just for you. Now, let's continue this journey together. Once you've started the habit of writing down your feelings regularly, something interesting begins to happen. It's not always dramatic at first. You might notice subtle shifts, less tension in your shoulders, a quieter mind, or even just a small sigh of relief when you close your notebook. That's the beginning of change. Over time, the habit deepens your self-awareness in ways that can completely transform how you experience your past and present. One of the next steps I discovered is that writing allows you to examine your emotions without judgment. When a memory surfaces and triggers anger or sadness, it's tempting to scold yourself for feeling that way, or to judge the person who hurt you harshly. Writing creates a neutral ground. On paper, you can describe what happened, how it made you feel, and even why it still matters to you, all without needing to argue with it or suppress it. That process alone reduces the emotional charge. You start seeing things more clearly, not excusing bad behavior, but understanding it and acknowledging your own humanity in the situation. And that clarity is the foundation of forgiveness. I also found that writing encourages empathy, even in situations where it feels impossible. When you write about someone who wronged you, you can explore their perspective in a safe space. Perhaps they acted out of fear, ignorance, or pain of their own. You don't need to condone their behavior, but you can recognize that people are complex and flawed. That recognition softens the grip of resentment. I remember writing about an old friend who hurt me deeply decades ago. At first, my words were sharp, full of anger. But after a few weeks, I began to notice small shifts. I could describe the events more objectively, and eventually, I even imagined what might have driven their actions. That didn't change what happened, but it changed me. And that change, the easing of anger, is what forgiveness really looks like. Another powerful aspect of this habit is that it creates a sense of ritual and consistency, which is incredibly comforting as we age. Life can feel unpredictable, and unresolved emotions often add to that sense of instability. By dedicating a few minutes each day to writing, you create a small anchor, a place where your emotions are valid, where you can explore them safely, and where you can begin the process of release. Over time, that ritual becomes something you rely on, a source of calm and stability that nurtures your emotional health. It's also important to recognize that forgiveness is not a linear process. Some days, you may write and feel lighter. Other days, old anger or grief might surface with intensity. That's perfectly normal. What matters is that you keep showing up for yourself. Writing provides a structured way to revisit difficult memories without being overwhelmed by them. The consistency of the habit gradually erodes the power those memories hold over you. It's like gently loosening a knot that's been tight for decades, slow, careful, and patient work, but profoundly freeing. As you continue writing, you may notice that your relationships begin to shift as well. People who once frustrated you or caused pain may occupy less mental space. You may find yourself less reactive, more patient, or simply more present. That's because forgiveness, when practiced internally, changes how you experience the world. You are no longer carrying extra weight into every interaction. You are lighter, calmer, and more capable of enjoying the present. I remember feeling this shift clearly when I could think of a person who had hurt me for years without the familiar knot of tension rising in my chest. That sense of relief and freedom is hard to describe, but it's life-changing. Another technique I incorporated alongside writing is reflection paired with intention. After I finished writing about a painful memory, I would often close my eyes and take a few deep breaths, repeating a simple affirmation like, "I release this pain. I choose peace." It's remarkable how much small, intentional acts like this reinforce the work you've already done on paper. Writing gives you insight, and these small rituals solidify that insight into emotional change. It's also worth noting that forgiveness practiced in this way often extends beyond the person who initially hurt you. You start to forgive yourself more readily, for mistakes, for missed opportunities, for times when you didn't handle situations perfectly. Self-forgiveness and forgiving others become intertwined. The practice of writing allows you to recognize that everyone, including yourself, was doing the best they could at the time. That perspective softens the heart and creates room for emotional growth that lasts a lifetime. Finally, the habit of writing helps you maintain perspective. Over time, as the months and years pass, you can look back at old entries and see the progress you've made. You'll notice that events that once felt monumental now occupy a smaller space in your mind, and your responses are calmer and more thoughtful. This reflection not only validates the effort you've put in but also encourages continued practice. It becomes a virtuous cycle. The more you write, the more you understand, and the more you forgive, which then makes writing even more meaningful. So, as you continue along this journey, consider this: forgiveness doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't require grand gestures or dramatic confrontations. It begins with small, consistent acts of self-reflection and emotional honesty. Writing down your feelings every day, even for just a few minutes, is a simple habit that can gradually transform how you relate to your past, to others, and to yourself. And as this practice deepens, you'll discover a freedom and peace that can touch every aspect of your life. Next, we'll explore how this habit can be combined with practical strategies to sustain forgiveness and bring it fully into your daily life, helping you move forward with grace and emotional resilience. Once you've established the habit of daily writing and reflection, the next step is learning how to integrate forgiveness into the flow of your everyday life. This is where the habit truly transforms from a private ritual into a life-changing practice. It's not about forcing yourself to feel something you don't. It's about creating a mindset that allows peace to gradually replace resentment, so that the past no longer dictates your present or future. One of the most effective ways I've found to do this is by pairing writing with conscious moments of awareness throughout the day. For example, when a memory or frustration surfaces, I pause and take a deep breath, remembering the insights I've written down. I remind myself that holding on to anger or guilt serves no purpose other than to weigh me down. That simple act, acknowledging the feeling, naming it, and then letting it go, becomes a powerful extension of the habit. It's as if each written entry builds a muscle of forgiveness, and the real world becomes the place to exercise it. I also learn to be gentle with myself during this process. Forgiveness, especially for deep or long-held hurts, is rarely a straight line. Some days, old wounds feel raw again. That's normal. The habit isn't about erasing pain instantly, it's about creating a consistent space for release and understanding. When I accept that some days will feel heavier than others, I no longer judge myself or feel discouraged. Instead, I return to my notebook, write what I feel, and allow the rhythm of the habit to guide me back to calm. Over time, even the most stubborn resentments start to soften. Another key aspect of this practice is learning to forgive in layers. Early on, the focus is on understanding your own feelings, giving yourself permission to acknowledge anger, sadness, or grief. Later, as clarity grows, it becomes easier to approach the other person's actions with empathy or at least neutrality. You don't have to reconcile or forget, you just choose not to carry the burden of anger anymore. I found that each small step toward understanding, each acknowledgement of emotion, slowly builds a bridge from resentment to acceptance. And that bridge is what allows true movement forward. It's also remarkable how this practice strengthens your sense of presence. Once you're not weighed down by old grudges, you can engage more fully with the people and moments in your life right now. I noticed myself laughing more freely, enjoying conversations without the undercurrent of unresolved feelings, and appreciating small joys with greater intensity. The habit of writing and intentional reflection cultivates emotional freedom, and freedom is a gift that becomes even more precious as we age. Another way I reinforced this habit was by celebrating small victories. Whenever I noticed a memory or grievance losing its grip on me, I acknowledged it quietly. I felt lighter today, or I noticed I didn't react with anger. These small affirmations aren't about pride, they're about recognizing progress and reinforcing the habit. Over time, these little wins accumulate, making forgiveness less of a distant goal and more of an ongoing reality in everyday life. I also began to share some of my experiences with trusted friends or family. Not in a confessional sense, but in moments of honest conversation about lessons learned and emotional growth. Sharing the journey of forgiveness, even in small ways, creates connection and reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles. Hearing someone else's story can illuminate your own path, and offering your own insights can strengthen your commitment to this habit. Through this consistent practice, I discovered that forgiveness is not just a single act, it's a lifestyle. It's woven into the way you approach your thoughts, your memories, and your interactions. Writing daily creates the foundation. Intentional awareness throughout the day strengthens it. Gentle acknowledgement of emotions, combined with small affirmations and moments of empathy, solidifies it. And as this habit becomes part of your life, the weight of past grievances lifts, leaving more space for joy, connection, and peace. Finally, I want to emphasize that this habit works at any stage of life, but its impact grows with age. The longer we carry grudges, the heavier they feel. The older we get, the more precious time becomes. Choosing to forgive, even in small steps, is an act of kindness to yourself, a way to reclaim energy, emotional clarity, and peace. It's never too late to start, and every moment you devote to this practice contributes to a lighter, freer, and more joyful life. If you found any part of this conversation meaningful, I encourage you to share your experiences or reflections in the comments. Talk about what has helped you release old pains, or what small steps you plan to take toward forgiveness. Your story may inspire someone else who is still carrying heavy burdens. And if this video has resonated with you, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel for more insights and guidance on emotional well-being and life after 60. Remember, forgiveness doesn't happen instantly, and it's not about forgetting the past. It's about giving yourself permission to move forward without carrying unnecessary weight. Small, consistent actions, like writing down your feelings and reflecting intentionally, can create profound shifts in how you experience life. And the peace and freedom you gain are worth every moment you invest. Here's to embracing life with an open heart, lighter burdens, and the courage to move forward at any age.